Today's guest is a very special person. He is in his 20s, but he was able to achieve a lot. He chose to study one of the most difficult languages ever, the Japanese language. He rapidly developed his skills and became a simultaneous interpreter from the Japanese into English and Arabic and vice versa. He took part in many prestigious international conferences like the Arab-Japanese Economic Conference and at the JICA. He also worked as an interpreter and assistant for the financial director of a big Japanese company in Egypt. So let's explore his success story together.
Well, when I was in high school, my passion was to study a new language, with a rare language to be my challenge in the future. Of course, it was about 2008. It was the period of my studious future. What is the future, how it will be shaped. That's why I tried to know a new language with a new, unique country, to know more about my studious future and to be future shaper of it. That's why I thought that, well, one of the unique languages is the rare languages in Egypt here. So I chose Japanese language because Japan is one of the future major shaper all over the world. So I tried to make my challenge with myself to say, yes, Margaret will study Japanese and will be one of the Japanese speakers. That's why I searched for the faculties that I can study Japanese of it. I found 2 faculties, so I chose Japanese with Faculty of Arts because I can also study the history, literature, culture of Japanese persons as well. That's why I choose Japanese to be my major in the future and to be somehow a unique person with Japanese speaker in the future.
Megid Ahmed was awarded a scholarship to study in Tokashuku University in Japan, and this was his first step towards success.
After having enrolled to the Faculty of Arts, I found that in the 3rd grade you can go to Japan and study for 1 year in one of the Japanese faculties. That's why you have to study hard, you have to gain more and more scores in your studies in Japanese culture, history and literature, so that you can be one of the best 5 in the faculty. In that case, those 5 will be sent to Japan to study in one of their Japanese faculties. So I made my efforts, did my best. Alhamdulillah, I could be one of those 5. So I have been to Japan to a university called Takushoku University in Tokyo. Over there I studied Japanese and also what you can say, detailed language and grammatical study over there. In addition to culture also and history of Japan and how to treat with Japanese. To be honest, in Japan I found that language is not only to know how to speak in this language, but it is also how to communicate with the person in front of you. You have to make him understand 100% what do you mean by your words, to be able to be one of those people, to be able to be one of those culture as well. So that in Japan I tried to make my study very well, to gain more and more of Japanese language, because you live in Japan, you speak in Japanese, you buy in Japanese, you make anything in Japanese, so that you live the language, not only to study, you live this language. So it was really a unique year for me.
One of the things that influenced Ahmed is the Japanese culture was how they hunt for jobs, or what is called shukatsu. Students in Japan do not start looking for jobs after graduation, but they start early, while they are in their 3rd year in college.
Be one of the most effective factors in my study in Japan was that shukatsu, because I found people, what can I say, students in Japan, when they are in the third grade or fourth grade, they start to search for work. Not like Egypt, they start to search for it after graduation, so they spend much more time searching for this job. But in Japan, they start to do it in the third grade, so that they save time, they save efforts, and also they gain experience as well. That's because I found my colleagues, they are running, they are making much more things to be in accordance with the time of shukatsu. Is in limited time, not in whenever you want. So I asked them, what is that shukatsu, what are you doing? They told me that you have to search for jobs, we have to catch this time, because if we didn't do it, it will be so difficult after graduation. So it was a really marvelous experience for me. So that I thought that you have to do it also, Magd, when you come back to Egypt, especially because I will be back in the fourth grade. So I will have to search for work, and I will have to start making my future and my career using the Japanese language and Japanese culture.
Believing in the value of work, Magid Ahmed began his career working for one of the biggest Japanese companies ever. He was promoted from being just an ordinary interpreter to a logistic coordinator and then to a manager.
After I came back to Egypt, I came back with that experience, and I came back with that effective factors in my life. So I am not that Magid who's traveled to Japan. I became much more open-minded. I became flexible in treating with many persons, because in Japan I tried to make friends from all over the world in the university, because it was not only Japanese persons, it was Japanese, Chinese, and also from Malaysia, from Indonesia, Philippines persons, and Egyptians. So that after I came back to Egypt, I started to make my CV to search for a work in the fourth grade. It was a little difficult in Egypt, that's why, because nobody understands why you are searching in the job when you're still in the university. But no, I have to save my time, and I will do it with Japanese corporations. So I tried to send my CV to many Japanese corporations without any advertising from them to hire somebody. I started from my initiative to do it. And Alhamdulillah, I could get a job as interpreter for one of the biggest Japanese corporations in Egypt that are contributing with the government in making power thermal plants. So I think it was one of the best factors of going to Japan, to come back to Egypt and try to shape my future.
During his career, Ahmed worked as a news editor for one of the most widely spread Japanese dailies and for the Japanese news agency. He even started teaching the Japanese and Arabic languages for foreigners.
When I started to work with that biggest Japanese corporations, I were only one interpreter with 11 Japanese engineers. Just interpreter, to go with them to the site, to translate, to interpret with them between the Egyptian and Japanese meetings. But I told myself, it's not only that. You have to deepen your career much more. You have to make your own career. So it is not only interpreter, and not only to coordinate with the two parts, Egyptian party and Japanese party. So I tried to understand that job. I tried to study a little about engineering to understand what they are talking about. What is that thermal power plant? What is it doing? I'm just Japanese interpreter and don't have engineering background. So I tried to improve myself, to self-study through online courses or any other source of study. So in 2012 I was just interpreter. In 2014 I was promoted to be logistics coordinator, to be the responsible person, of the shipments out of Egypt and in Egypt, to know the needs of the sites in the company projects, to know the stores, what they are needing for. So fulfill all these gaps, and also to coordinate with the outside parties to support us with shipments. So it was the first stage of promotion in my company here. And also because my manager told me that not only Japanese, Magid, don't think that you have to make your own career, you have to still improving yourself until your death, not only one time or two times. That's why I still working on myself, I still improving my skills to be much more higher. So after I became logistics coordinator in 2014, in 2015 I became a permanent employee in the company here, and just 1 week ago I was promoted to be administration manager.
Magid Ahmed was very passionate about simultaneous interpretation, so he took part in a lot of important international conferences like the Arab-Japanese Economic Conference, among others.
All this story was about the company, was about my career path. But after 5 o'clock I finished my work. So starting from 5 o'clock until I sleep, I have to take a risk, but also I have to make a use of this time. I have to be useful person. So I thought with myself, what if you are fired from the company? You will be homeless, no salary, no career, no job. So you have to be a forked person. You have to have much more career path, not only one, but much more one. So in my company, until this time, I tried to improve myself to have been promoted until the moment I'm talking to this topic. But starting from 2012, after my graduation, I started to be forked and to have many paths. One of them was the interpreting or translation with my company. The other one, to interpret and translate for my own, to have my own business as interpreter, to be freelance interpreter. And alhamdulillah, I could succeed in this, and now I'm working with about 12 or 13 translation agencies in Egypt and out of Egypt, in Japan and in UAE as well. They send me files, I translate and then send them back through online working. The third path is to teach Japanese language to Egyptians and Arabic to Japanese persons, so that I can say I have one more career path. I can say I'm safe. If I'm fired from my company, I can have another one. If I'm not fired, I'm improving myself, because those are experience. You are treating with many kind of persons with teaching language. You know more about that language when you teach it. Not just you listen to the language, you listen to that grammar, oh yeah, I understood it, and then use it without thinking of it. But when you teach it, you have to call it again. You have to search why I can say that, not this. I have to say he, not she, simply, so that it improves your skills in the language itself. And also in the translation and interpretation out of Egypt or in Egypt as well, you know more about many fields that you don't imagine to read about it, technically, legally fields, and also in educational one. It is the translation. And in interpretation, you go to many events to translate or to interpret. And also you go to many factories, you go to many difficult places that this Japanese experience are needed over there. They call the Japanese one to tell the Egyptian persons what they have to do. You are the key person over there. You are the person who move it, who transfer the information to the Egyptians to understand it, and also to transfer the piece of information that they need to the Japanese expert to tell them. And also in my corporation, I improve myself and improve my work as well with my company to make it easier and make it work is make much more flexible way.
With the aim of developing his skills, Ahmed entered a qualification exam, which is one of the hardest ever in Japan. The contender is demanded to know about 7,000 characters of the Japanese alphabet, in addition to its grammatical rules.
The experience of interpretation, it was one of my favorite experience because I gained many things. The most simple one is self-confidence, that you can interpret with them. Recently I interpreted for a Japanese famous organization called JETRO, Japan External Trading Organization. Its branch in Egypt was making an event, and I have over there to interpret that event. Not only interpretation, but we can say simultaneous interpretation, whispering interpretation. Not to tell me the piece of information and then you stop, I talk. No, I'm talking in the same moment with the speaker to transfer this one. The interpretation, we have two ways of interpretation. The first one is the speaker tell us the information, the piece of information, and he stops, then I speak to the other party. Then the other party reply, he stops, and I transfer that information. This is the first one. The second one is the speaker doesn't stop. I have to be in accordance with the speaker in the same moment. He starts to talk, I start to interpret. Word by word, moment by moment. These two types I tried to make with them. The second type, it was with JETRO and also with JICA, Japan International Cooperation Agency, in one of its projects in Egypt here. And recently I was one of the interpretation team in the Arab-Japanese Economical Forum. It was held in a famous place here in Tahrir Square. So to reach to this level of language or this level of self-confidence to accept this opportunities, they told me, yes, okay, I'm ready. To reach this level of interpretation or translation, I studied many times Japanese, and I have improved to many levels. To be clear with you, in Japanese language we have something called JLPT, Japanese Language Proficiency Test. It consists from 5 levels. The easiest one is number 5. The most difficult one is number 1. So when you start to study Japanese, you have to pass by level 5, 4, 3, 2, and then the last one or the most difficult one, number 1. In the university, I could reach until the 3rd one. I got the level 3 in the university. So after graduation, I have no choice except to have to go to that level 2 to be able to be accepted with Japanese corporation and to be accepted with work environment here in Egypt or even in Japan. Simply, Japanese language has 3 alphabets. One is hiragana, one is katakana, one is kanji. Hiragana and katakana, each of them is 45 characters, and kanji we can say approximately 10,000 characters. As a Japanese speaker, non-native speaker, of course you cannot catch all of this, but to be interpreter or translator, you have to catch at least 90% of this. So in the level 2 of the Japanese language proficiency test, you have to have 7,000 characters of the kanji and to learn about 10,000 words, Japanese words, and also to have high skills in listening and what can I say? Listening and answering the questions in few seconds, not minutes, few seconds, not minutes. So by this one, level 2, you can be approved as good or very good Japanese speaker. But to be really excellent Japanese speaker, same like Japanese, no difference, you have to get that number 1. It's really difficult. There's a few persons who can get that one. If you are planning to go to Japan and work over there, you have to get this one, number 1. Self-improvement is not only in your career. There is something called exploration and something called exploitation. Exploitation is to exploit your skills and your knowledge. Exploration is to explore more unknown knowledge that you have. So when I work with Japanese corporation and use my Japanese language and improve myself in this work field, I exploit myself and exploit my skills. But I have also to explore much more fields to be balanced person and to gain much more confidence, self-confidence, and to gain much more high opportunities to improve myself personally and professionally. So in the field of exploitation, as I have told in the past, I worked and worked in many fields, but also in exploration I have to study still much more fields, not only in the bachelor degree, yeah, I'm fine, no, I have to study until my death. So I got many courses and diploma to improve myself. One of them called a tour guide, to be a tour guide person, using my Japanese language as well. So the reason of studying that diploma to be a tour guide is to have the choice to be or to be able to make my decision if I want to start a new career with tour guide, or I want to still here in my company. As for me, I don't like to be stuck with one field only. No, I don't feel safe. It's not safe for me. If you told me I'm hired, I will be homeless, so it is not professional way of thinking. My biggest dream in the future to be a famous interpreter, actually in Egypt and in Japan, and also to interpret to a high level interpretation, something like to interpret in presidential event, to be interpreter for Mr. President in the future, or to a high level person in Japan as well. It is my major event, my major dream, as I think. The other one is to have my own business. Same like Japanese interpretation and translation. Right now I'm doing it as freelance person, but in the future I'd like to make my office or my own company for interpretation and translation, including Genius activities also, to collect the volunteering activity and contributing in the community, plus the professional career path, to be one merged entity that is serving many persons and many destinations in Egypt and Egypt.